Hello and welcome to Talk Truth. My name is Corey Huntsberger. I've got my father, Alan Huntsberger, in the studio. If this is your first time watching our show, welcome. Dad, we're noticing new people hopping on board. What's going on?
Yeah, well, it's exciting, and I think it's people that are watching are telling their friends, and the news is spreading,
It is
and
spreading.
we're grateful.
Yeah, so we're going to start off with our new foundational, not our new, our always foundational verse that we start off with the show. The earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord. He's the creator of it. It belongs to him because he laid the foundation on the seas and established it on the rivers. Psalm 24, 1 and 2. Dad, what do you have to add to that?
Not much, except what we need to do. In fact, I have this verse in front of me. It's Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. It says, "So we must not get tired of doing good,
Mm.
for we will reap at the proper time if we don't give up." So the path of obedience, faith, and love for Christ may be narrow and sometimes long, but your endurance has eternal significance. He sees, he knows, and he rewards. So we need to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. Strength is coming, harvest is coming, glory is ahead. And that's
Good.
what I believe why we do Talk Truth in the first place.
All right. I feel guilty now. Conviction is feeling my heart right now. I am. I'll be honest. I do grow weary sometimes, but I know that good things are happening, and new people finding the show for the very first time. Alan, we're getting the letters. They're like, "Hey, I just found you guys. I've been watching for the last month," and I'm like, "Where have you been for the last 3 years?" But you know what I mean. I'm excited that things are happening. People are finding the show and they are being informed and they're waking up to the truth. So
Mm,
I am grateful. I will not grow weary in doing good. Someone
good.
else who shouldn't grow weary in doing good is this man right here, Mr. Shawn Buckley. Shawn, don't grow weary in doing good because you're doing amazing things out there, my friend.
Well, so are you, and it's easier said than done. But as you guys are talking about that, about new people finding out about Talk Truth, kind of two things came to my mind. Is first of all, everything happens in its season. So those people are now part of an awakening, part of God's moving, because God speaks through this program. And I know that you guys submit yourself to him so that he will speak. And it's his voice that matters. And those watching, like, share this program, because and share the past programs. It's just incredible the truth that's come out through here, and it's a professional format and people will watch. So just participate in what God's been doing. It's wonderful.
I love that. Shawn, we're going through a 3-day testimony of Dr. Makis for the National Citizens Inquiry. Can you go ahead and tee up what he's going to talk about today?
Yeah, and and if your audience hasn't watched day 1 and 2, go back. Although it's going to trouble you, especially day 2, because Dr. Makis kind of goes through individual case reports of children, and you come to realize, wait, this isn't clinical. These are kids being forced or going through aggressive chemotherapy and surgery and dying with what's called turbo cancers. And that's a new term that's come up only after the vaccines, that these cancers are just so aggressive. And Dr. Makis is an esteemed oncologist. So he's a cancer doctor, he treats patients, he does research. He needs to be listened to because he ends this segment by basically saying, look, in Canada, we've vaccinated 3 million children. And every single one of those going forward is at an increased risk of cancer. And every parent needs to understand that so that they're watching.
Here's part 3.
I looked through these cases and I summarized these cases, and I wanted to see if there's any patterns here. Is this random? We're always told that these are random events that are unrelated to the COVID-19 vaccine. And so when it comes to children, there are 21 cancer cases for children in VAERS after taking Pfizer or Moderna COVID-19 vaccines. 21 in the VAERS reporting system, 9 lymphomas, 7 leukemias, 4 sarcomas, and 1 neuroblastoma. But the pattern in the age categories is very different as you go through the ages. And so in younger children, ages 0 to 4, there's a leukemia case. Ages 5 to 11, you see 3 leukemia, 2 lymphoma, but still predominantly leukemia. And then ages 12 to 19, it completely shifts. And you have a completely different patterns of cancers that these kids are getting. And so now lymphomas predominate. And you see lymphomas are number 1, 7 lymphomas, 4 sarcomas. Now sarcomas are cancers of the soft tissues of the muscle, the cancers of the heart, the cancers of the various muscles and so on, the bones. And then you get the leukemias in 3rd place. And again, remember, these were kids that received the full dose, the adult dose of the COVID-19 vaccines. 18 of the 21 cases were due to Pfizer, or after taking, I should rephrase that. 18 of the 21 cases occurred after the child took Pfizer vaccine. 3 were after the child took Moderna vaccine. If we look at the number of doses, with 1 dose, there were 3 children who got cancer. 2 doses, 11 children who got cancer. And we know how the health authorities stressed children to receive at least 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine or Moderna vaccine. 3 doses, 3 children, and then unknown number of doses for children. And then you wonder, well, what is the time from taking the injection to development of cancer? And some of these are quite rapid. In a 2 to 3 week period after taking the vaccine, 3 children developed cancer, 2 leukemias, 1 lymphoma. About a month after injection, 6 children developed cancer. And then you see 2 to 3 months, 4 children, 4 to 5 months, 4 children, 8 to 9 months, 3 children, and so on. So there's a very steady report of cancers as time goes by. And so then we looked at the literature, the published peer-reviewed literature. And in peer-reviewed literature, there are 20 cases of cancer following COVID-19 vaccination with Pfizer or Moderna mRNA vaccines. They're all adults. And these are the cancer types that have been published in the literature. 13 lymphomas. It is the most common cancer published in the literature after COVID-19 vaccination. 13 lymphomas. The second, sarcomas. 3 sarcomas, 1 leukemia, 1 melanoma, and a couple of very rare cancers. And so this is the exact same pattern that we see in the VAERS system for children 12 to 19 who received the adult dose of the COVID-19 vaccines. We see the same pattern. The most common cancer is lymphoma, not just in VAERS in children, but also in the published literature. Second most common, sarcomas. Third most common, leukemia. Again, in the published literature, 15 of the 20 cases were after the Pfizer vaccine. 4 were after the Moderna vaccine. Again, very similar pattern to what we see in the VAERS reporting system. But according to the government of Canada, there are no safety signals for these vaccines at all. None. None whatsoever. And so we're told, Dr. Makis, you made up the term turbo cancer. You're making up this idea that these vaccines are causing cancer. I did not make up the term turbo cancer. It is a term that is being used to describe the extremely aggressive nature of these cancers. And, I did not make any of this up. I see this happening around me. I have expertise in this. I have training in pattern recognition. I spent 5 years specializing in radiology and oncology to recognize patterns so that I could diagnose cancer patients properly and that I could treat cancer patients properly. That is my training. That is what I do. And I'm seeing a very, very disturbing signal here with COVID-19 vaccines and cancer. These are the studies, the published peer-reviewed studies of cancer cases after vaccination. And what you can notice about these cases is there's more of them as time goes by. So back in 2021, we only had 1 case. In 2022, there were 4. 2023, there were 6. 2024, there are 7. And as time goes by, you're going to see more and more peer-reviewed publications on cancer after COVID-19 vaccination. In fact, there's an amazing study there's under review right now, and it is a systematic review of lymphoma secondary to COVID-19 vaccination. In fact, there are so many lymphoma cases now that were identified by these researchers, a total of 143 cases. That's in the results section. 143 cases post-COVID vaccination lymphoma were identified, including 11 from the literature and 132 cases of vaccine adverse events from various vaccine reporting systems. The conclusion of these authors is that the administration of the COVID vaccine may potentially elevate the associated risk of lymphoma incidence. This is currently under peer review. And so I wanted to just very briefly share with you that every component of the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine may be contributing to the development of cancer. And you heard more about this from other presenters who testified earlier. And everything from the lipid nanoparticle to the mRNA, to the DNA contamination, to the spike protein, even the types of antibodies that are produced in people who've had multiple COVID vaccines can contribute to cancer. And again, there are dozens and dozens of peer-reviewed publications now examining the various mechanisms of how these vaccines may be causing cancer. I can tell you, just with the lipid nanoparticle alone, the fact that the lipid nanoparticle accumulates in the bone marrow, and we see leukemias and lymphomas, the fact that it accumulates in the heart, and we see these heart tumors that we've never seen before, and we certainly haven't seen them at these rates. The fact that the lipid nanoparticles accumulate in the testes and ovaries, and we're seeing ovarian cancers, testicular cancers, there is something there that needs to be researched. And what I want to close my testimony on is an article that had been written by a CBC investigative journalist, a very senior CBC investigative journalist, Charles Rusnell, in September 2021, which describes how the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta in September of 2021 viewed doctors like myself and like many of the other doctors who were mentioned by Dr. Mark Chirlzy, for example, who've been persecuted by colleges throughout the country, how the Alberta College of Physicians and Surgeons viewed those physicians who were raising concerns about these vaccines. And I want to read you this article because it is absolutely shocking when we look back on this. The article is titled, "Regulator to Get Tough with Doctors Undermining Pandemic Response in Alberta. The College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta to Crack Down on Anti-Vax Doctors. Complaints against doctors who actively undermine efforts to combat the COVID-19 pandemic will be prioritized," says the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta. Right here, we see the tone that is set in regards to doctors who are raising concerns about vaccines, about masks, about lockdowns. The College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta has lost patience with doctors who have actively undermined the province's response to the pandemic. Where have we heard this language before? We've lost patience with you. At an emergency meeting of the college's council members unanimously supported issuing a strongly worded warning letter. In other words, a threatening letter to all the doctors in Alberta, underpinned by bolstered standards of practice to doctors who spread misinformation about COVID-19 vaccines or advise patients not to get vaccinated with what we now strongly suspect is a cancer-causing experimental vaccine, improperly issue exemptions for vaccine and masks, like medical exemptions, or refuse to be vaccinated or wear masks. So the college is threatening doctors who will not get vaccinated, who don't want this experimental cancer-causing product. They were going to get a warning letter. 5,000 Alberta doctors responded to a survey that found 96% supported pandemic restrictions and practices, but about 4% did not. You just found the 4% of ethical doctors in the province of Alberta. And that small group is having a big influence in undermining public confidence in vaccines and safety protocols. The 4% of physicians that are actively working against the rest of the 96%, see, I don't see it that way. The 4% were standing for the Hippocratic Oath and were protecting their patients. They weren't fighting against the other 96%. They were doing what was right, what was ethical. They were abiding by their Hippocratic Oath. But no, the 4% that are actively working against the 96 are a source of incredible frustration to many of my colleagues. Dr. John Meddings, Dean of University of Calgary's Faculty of Medicine, told Monday's public hearing. I want you to remember this name, Dr. John Meddings. He's the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Calgary. And he is saying that this 4% of doctors who are raising concerns are a source of incredible frustration. Meddings said it was absolutely inappropriate for doctors to skirt the rules by, for example, handing out vaccine exemptions. If someone is asking for a vaccine exemption, it is because they probably need it. In fact, no one should have had to ask for a vaccine exemption. No one should have been forced to take the vaccine at all, period, and stop. This Dean of Medicine goes on to say, I think we should take people to task for it. What is he saying there? We should punish these doctors who are raising concerns. Once again, Dr. John Meddings, this is the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine of the University of Calgary. We should take people to task for it, punish them. How? Destroy their reputation, destroy their career, drag them through hearings, do what the BC College did to Dr. Charles Hoff. Spend 3 years dragging him through kangaroo courts, destroying his life and destroying his medical career. This is what the Dean of Medicine in Calgary is advocating for. We should take them to task. He said, summarizing the sentiment of all of the council members, this is the college. He's summarizing the sentiment of the college who feels the same. We should destroy these doctors' lives. In an interview, the college registrar, Dr. Scott McLeod, here's another name that you should remember. This is, again, the registrar of the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta, who has an influence on the 11,000 doctors who practice medicine in Alberta. The college registrar, Dr. Scott McLeod, said that the college has already told doctors spreading misinformation that their behavior is considered unprofessional. It is unprofessional to raise concerns. Even though we do take action, we need to make it incredibly clear, and counselors wanted to be very clear they were in support of much stronger actions in this area, McLeod said. From now on, if doctors are defiant, listen to this language, if doctors are defiant, complaints against them will be prioritized, especially those who are putting patients in harm's way by refusing to get vaccinated. Meaning, if you don't want, as a physician, to take an experimental cancer-causing injection that is causing athletes to collapse in the middle of the field, you are defiant, and you will be punished for it. I think that person can expect to have a complaint filed against them, and I think it is likely that complaint will be followed by a formal hearing. A formal hearing is this 2-3 year long process where they destroy your life and your medical career. McLeod said this is now happening in other provinces, and it will eventually make it easier to sanction doctors through the college's hearing process in Alberta. The province's doctors and the public will be encouraged to report other doctors whose practices or social media posts are potentially putting the public at risk. Snitching on your colleagues, this is Soviet-style approach. Authoritarianism, snitching on your colleagues to get them into trouble. McLeod said the college has to get tough now because the province's healthcare system has been overwhelmed by COVID cases. By that time, the Alberta government had evidence that it was the double vaccinated who were actually filling the hospitals and overwhelming the healthcare system, not the unvaccinated. It will inform the public that the college will support doctors. Now, I really want you to pay attention to this. The college will support doctors who drop patients who aggressively seek vaccine or mask exemptions or seek prescriptions for alternative treatments such as ivermectin. Here, the college is advocating to deny care to patients who either want to be exempt from this experimental vaccine or who just want to be prescribed ivermectin, which has now by the Alberta government's task force, COVID task force, has been found to be 15 times safer than aspirin. The college was going to encourage these doctors to drop these patients. You know what that is? That is denying them medical care. This is unethical. That's the nicest way I can put it. This is absolutely grossly unethical. And so, in conclusion, I am calling for the immediate suspension of the use of these vaccines in children of all ages and pregnant women. It should not be used in anybody, but the least we can do is protect children. These vaccines are not safe or effective. There is substantial scientific evidence of serious adverse events, including cancer and death, caused to or contributed by the vaccines. The COVID-19 mRNA vaccines must immediately be removed from the childhood vaccine schedules. There are parents who believe it is mandatory to continue giving these injections to their children because they are on the vaccine schedule. They must be immediately removed from the childhood vaccine schedules. We must reinstate informed consent, medical ethics, and the Hippocratic Oath, which have been destroyed by the colleges of physicians and surgeons throughout Canada. Parents must be informed of the risks caused by these COVID vaccines in children, including a lifetime increased risk of cancer and death. And this is the last part I want to leave you with. I believe that each of these 3 million children in Canada who's received at least one COVID-19 vaccine has an increased lifetime risk of cancer as a result. And we need research into diagnostics and treatments for children who've been injured by these vaccines or who've developed cancer after taking one of these vaccines. Thank you very much.
The whole part of how the doctors were just hammered. It's not professional to share your concerns. Unbelievable, but that's what happened. Shawn, what do you have to say?
Well, you know, on the previous Talk Truth show on Dr. Makis, Alan raised the issue that, you know, the media hasn't been reporting on this stuff. And here, Dr. Makis is showing a CBC article. Like, so here we've got the media, you know, reporting Dr. Scott McLeod, the registrar, saying, you know, the college is going to support doctors dropping patients if patients want an exemption from the vaccine, if patients want a mask exemption, if patients want ivermectin, and that the college is going to support the public and doctors basically telling on other doctors. I mean, this is police state stuff that the CBC is reporting on, and why? To encourage people to report on doctors, to encourage doctors to, you know, cancel patients, and to scare the public from raising it with their doctors so they don't get fired. I mean, this is part of the control, and they don't interview any of these other doctors to see, well, you know, why are you doing this, or what are your concerns? It was just so one-sided, but it just shocked me that, you know, here we've got the CBC again, basically being used to browbeat doctors and the public.
Yeah, if you watch all this the last 3 days and you can't tell that something stinks in the barn, then something's bad with your nose, because it smells to me. Alan, your thoughts?
Well, you know, this is the interesting thing. We're living in a day and age that is basically eliminating God, or trying to eliminate God.
Yeah.
And in all respects, you know, I mean, the reason why we had such good health in Canada over the decades is because we're closer to God than we are today. Now we're getting rid of it. I mean, basically the DEI, for example, is replacing God. And it has to do with man's going to decide what's good and evil, not God. And we don't have the rule of law or the supremacy of God anymore. And this is the problem. This is the number one problem. And I don't care what kind of new party you want to, you know, drum up in order for you to have more freedom. You are not going to have more freedom until you realize that God has to be in the center of it. Now, that doesn't mean we're talking about doctrine or church or whatever. That's just talking about God as the creator, and he gave us the rule of law, and he's supreme. And that we have to always keep in mind.
Ooh, good point.
Can I just
Yeah,
butt
yeah.
in
We
because
got 60 seconds. I'm going to give it to you,
no,
Shawn.
but Alan's on something really important, because Western civilization has been the most free civilization that we're aware of, and it's because it's based on the two main commandments: love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Our civil and criminal law are based on the second commandment, and that has produced the freest societies that we've ever known.
Right.
Shawn, I want to say that I really appreciate you getting this testimony for the National Citizens Inquiry. I'm going to go ahead and give you 30 seconds to talk a little bit about that so people know where they can go and find the website and stuff.
Yeah, so it's just nationalcitizensinquiry.ca. There is a hearings tab, and you can find the testimony. We've started in 2023. Pick any day and just start watching. You'll be shocked. It's so compelling, and it's not just experts like Dr. Makis. It is, individual people. So here he's testified about cancer. Well, I mean, in the Edmonton hearings on day 3, just before Dr. Makis's testimony, we had a mother who lost, her young daughter. I mean, young daughter, she was a young adult, to a turbo cancer because of the vaccine. And when you see the real life stories, it just breaks your heart. But you have to see it. You have to understand what's happening. You need to see what's happening to God's people.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Shawn. We're definitely going to have you back. Thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Thanks for having me.
We've all been under this psychological warfare, this spiritual warfare that's going on against the principalities and evil of darkness in the sky. I mean, I'm not mad at the people. I am just, I don't know. If I'm frustrated, I'm sure the Lord gets frustrated.
He doesn't get frustrated because he knows what's going to happen way before
True.
he ever knows. But the interesting thing is that I just believe that, we've got to keep doing what God wants us to do, and that's telling the truth and exposing the lies. And as long as we're faithful to that, God's will be done.
Yep.
And it will happen in our country.
If you'd like to help support our mission, you can. You can go to our website, gotalktruth.com. You can click on the donate button and give digitally that way. If you'd like to do it through the mail, you can. You can make a check payable to Heritage Christian Ministries Association and send it to 246 Stewart Green, Southwest Suite 3260, Calgary, Alberta, T3H 3C8. All your gifts are tax deductible. And if you'd like prayer, you can call our toll-free line 1-800-915-0056. All right, Dad, we're out of time. We'll see you guys later.
Love you.